All right, it's great to be here. This is an exciting moment for us at Tamr. And I'm a software engineer by training and serial entrepreneur, as Matt said, and the CEO and co-founder of Tamr. And the reason I'm here today is the same reason many of you are here. I really believe in the future and the potential of the analytic enterprise and the data-driven enterprise. And that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today. So the first thing is all these new technologies are fantastic and fun. I'm an engineer by training, and so I love to play with new stuff. But there's a dirty little secret in the enterprise. The quality and the connectedness of our enterprise data really sucks. Full stop. And you heard it, Tom talked about it a little bit, Riley mentioned it. Like, we can't assume, and a lot of these new technology products that come out, they assume at the very beginning, well, assume you've got a clean data set. Assume you've got a data set that's well organized. It's just not the case. So I've seen this in a bunch of different contexts. Over the course of my career, I've been both on the vendor side, selling software solutions to the enterprise, as well as on the buyer side, as the CIO at Infinity Pharmaceuticals, and as the global head of software and data engineering over at Novartis. And then we ran into this an awful lot too when we were starting Vertica and launching Vertica. But at Novartis, the problem that we had was they had 8,000 research scientists across the entire world, hundreds of different laboratories, and we really couldn't tell them what data standards to use. Even if we had tried, they would have ignored us. So we had to figure out a way to get all of their experimental results aggregated together so that they could see what each other were working on. And then there was this other benefit that we were looking for. We were looking to get an integrated view of how we were spending more than $2 billion a year in research at Novartis. And so trying to sort of corral all the scientific data was a real challenging problem. As our friend Joey Hellerstein would say, it was a wrangling problem. And so at the core of this was a lot of different data sources. We had over 15,000 sources that we were trying to bring together in an integrated way and look at all the attributes and how to sync those attributes across all these different sources. The amazing thing about this problem was that when Mike and I were founding Vertica, we had a similar kind of a problem where we go in and somebody was building a new data warehouse and we saw hundreds of these warehouses. And they would go through the process of defining the sources, developing the ETL, getting it into the targets, making it flow, making it scale, getting it rolled out to end users. And the minute they were finished rolling this out, the users would come back and say, hey, there was this source that I forgot. Can you just throw that in there? Or, oh, there's this attribute in this source. We really need that for this one analytic. It's really important. Can you get that back in there? Many of us have had this same experience. And so the process, as Tom mentioned in his talk earlier, of bringing in new data sources, bringing in new attributes, was kind of an unnatural act. It was sort of an artifact of this master data management thing. And so when you're in this situation, you have a choice. What are you going to do? You can either ignore the new source or the new attribute and kind of just put it aside, right? Or you can go back to the very beginning and start all over. More often than not, you kind of put it on the side and you say, well, we'll get to it at some point. And that point never actually happens because resources are always constrained. We felt this was a really missed opportunity because there's all this data sitting in the enterprise that's kind of sitting on the sidelines, waiting to get integrated into the warehouse. And this is kind of the motivation that we have for sort of developing this new system. We also saw, so I'll just get it out of my system, right? So as many of you know, my partner Mike Snowbreaker and I are not huge on MapReduce and Hadoop. So I'll just get it out of my system now. Hadoop, 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 Hadoop. Right? So I think I've checked the box for the number of times you have to say Hadoop. So, but these unstructured data sources, these NoSQL sources, I think of them as JSON sources, are really awesome, but they're everywhere, right? How many people here are familiar with Mongo and implemented Mongo and stuff? Like everybody, right? Like there's a proliferation of all these JSON sources. And the challenge with these is that they're very unstructured. They're not very structured. And so how are you going to pull the data out of that? It's fantastic. It's been a huge productivity improvement for enterprise application development to have these kinds of databases. But at the end of the day, you're going to want to take advantage of that data in an integrated way. And in order to do it, you need something other than traditional ETL and master data management. So this is what we're talking about now, is this opportunity, right, to connect and curate data in an automated way. So we think that the time has come to embrace the reality of variety across the entire enterprise. Right? There's so much data out there. Again, you heard it in some of these talks today. There's so much variety out there that it's time for us to build a new capability inside the enterprise, inside of organizations, that embraces that reality. It doesn't look at adding a new data source as something that's an unnatural act, but instead, it's like a new website coming online the internet. You don't even notice it, right? Like search engines go out and they crawl it. When you're going to go after this kind of a problem, it makes a lot of sense to view this from a bottom-up perspective, a probabilistic approach, as opposed to this sort of traditional top-down master data management kind of approach. And so this is, for me, this is like Back to the Future. So back in the early 1990s, when the web was first coming online, and we had to figure out a way to connect all the different websites that were out there in the world. And the search engines, initially Yahoo and later Google and others, figured out that using this kind of a probabilistic approach where they would point their crawlers at a website, figure out all the information that's there, and then use lots of different machine learning techniques to figure out how to connect all the information across all of these different websites. We think this is a very similar thing to what the enterprise has to go through in managing this proliferation of this variety of all these different data sources. And it sounds about right. You know, in the enterprise, and I've been a CIO, and I've worked in large Fortune 100 companies as managing information. We're about 20 years or so behind kind of state of the art of the internet, so the timing's about right. So when my partner Mike and I started looking at this problem, he started a research project over at MIT CSAIL. It was a really great project, and we're really looking at how can you push the envelope? Can you integrate thousands or tens of thousands of sources very dynamically? And so as we sort of developed that project, we worked very, very closely with some of our great early commercial adopters, specifically folks at Novartis, many of whom are here, my friend Vivian and my friend Mark, and as well at Thomson Reuters, Mona Vernon, who's here and is going to talk later. And, no, back. There you go. No, other way. There we go. No, you go. There you go. So, and the result of this work, we've been working on this for 3.5 or 4 years, and we're really pleased today to be able to announce to you the results of all this effort over the last 3 or 4 years. Today we're launching here at VentureBeat Tamr as a company and as a product. We're backed by top-tier venture capitalists who really share our mission and vision, folks over at Google Ventures and NEA. We're really ecstatic, not only because we believe in our software, we believe this is a great, important new capability for the enterprise, but we also have seen how this works at places like Novartis, where we integrated 15,000 data sources into one view. And also at Thomson Reuters, where we helped radically reduce the cost, the time and energy and cost associated with data curation by over 90%. So the Tamr system is really cool. It uses a combination of machine learning and advanced algorithms. And we use those to inspect these new data sources as they come online. Again, very much the same way that a crawler inspects new websites. And then we generate confidence intervals associated with those, with all these different sources and the connectedness between the sources. And we use expert sourcing. We use a panel of data experts to help tune and tweak the data to make sure that it's accurate enough. And we deliver that in the form of an integrated set of data and metadata, very similar to what Steve was describing earlier that he's done in his application. We make this all available via RESTful APIs because we know most enterprises have dozens of different visualization tools, dozens of different ways that they want to consume this information. So I'm a software engineer. I tend to prefer software to slides. So now that we've got the slides out of the way, we made our big announcement, we're hoping to take a few minutes and show you a little bit of what the Tamr system can do. And some of what you'll see is capability that's in our product today. Some of it is capabilities that we'll be delivering to our customers over the next 12 to 18 months. But I'm going to ask Alan to step up and do a quick demonstration. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you very much, Andy. That was great, and thanks to all of you for coming out here. My name is Alan Wagner. I'm a field engineer at Tamr. And I'm going to show you how our system can be used to integrate and connect all data sources at scale through a combination of machine learning and human expertise. And to do so, I'm going to introduce our first character, which is Jonah Richards. He's a data steward for customer data at a large data-driven telecommunications company. When he first logs into our system, he sees a dashboard for the curation of customer data. On the top left-hand corner, you can see a quad chart that indicates how all of his sources of customer data are connected at both the attribute level and the record level. So all of his data sources, one single graph. Then, all of the graphs on the right-hand side of the page indicate how these levels of connectivity have increased over time and how all the human experts within the organization have contributed to these levels of curation and connectivity. On the bottom left-hand corner, there's a graph that indicates the strength of the relationships between all of these customer entities and other types of entities in the enterprise data. For example, that for salespeople or for products. Then, Jonah sees a notification in blue in the top right-hand corner that indicates that Tamr's data crawlers have found a new source. So Jonah clicks into it, and he's taken to Tamr's data source inventory, which shows all of the sources of customer data. These sources were all discovered by Tamr's data crawlers, which are looking at both internal and external systems, such as Excel, HDFS, SharePoint, or even feeds from data.gov. And as these sources are discovered, they all get a level of record connectivity and attribute connectivity. And Tamr is able to make these connections based on previous knowledge that it has gained from previous curation efforts. And with this, Tamr is able to connect about 90 to 95% of all the records and attributes automatically. So now, Jonah wants to take a closer look at one of the sources, in particular on the top left-hand corner, the main quote request source. And in this page, you can see a little bit more information, such as who owns the source, who's in charge of maintaining it, what are some profile and summary statistics that can be used to get a quick high-level picture of what is the data in this source. And at the bottom, you can see some experts that Tamr has suggested. And these experts are from all over the organization. And Tamr has suggested that these experts know the most about this data source based on previous interactions with other data sources in the system. But most importantly is that small notification in the top right-hand corner. This is indicating that Tamr has generated some questions for these data experts. And as I said earlier, Tamr was able to automatically connect the records and the attributes of this source to all the other records and attributes in the system at about a rate of 90 to 95%. And Tamr has generated these particular questions to be able to connect the remaining 5 or 10%. And we sent these questions to human experts within the enterprise to get a little bit of human insight. One such expert is Leah Kramer, who is a sales analyst from another department of the company. And she sees that Tamr has given her some questions, so she dives right into answering them. The first question is with regards to this contact attribute from the main quote request data source. And Tamr wants to understand what other attributes in the system are most similar to this contact attribute. And Tamr has already narrowed it down to a few choices of attributes that are very similar. In particular, there's the primary number and the corporate number. But Leah, using her experience and her expertise as a sales analyst, knows that when people request for quotes, they most likely will use their primary number, so she's able to indicate that choice. Then, she moves on to the second question, which is with regards to the DUNS number attribute that is in the main quote request data source. Tamr has seen such an attribute before and knows about the different types of transformations that can be applied to such an attribute. One of these transformations is extracting the company name from this DUNS number by using D&B data that this company has acquired in the past. And furthermore, it knows that this transformation is actually very useful for all the downstream applications that are consuming data. And so Tamr can suggest this transformation, and Leah agrees that it's actually very important, so she indicates that to the system. Once she's done answering all of these questions, we can go back to Jonah, who will receive a notification indicating that Leah has given some insight. When he goes back to his dashboard, he'll see that panel on the right-hand side that indicates all the suggestions that Leah has given him, as well as her level of expertise. It's indicated by the 3 stars below her profile image. Jonah, seeing that she's actually a very skilled human expert, is able to accept all of her recommendations. And as a result, we can observe that the levels of attribute connectivity and record connectivity rise drastically, as well as the strengths of the relationships between the customer data and all the other types of data. And what I've just shown you here is a short and very small example of how Tamr can use tidbits of human knowledge and expertise and insight and apply them at scale to all the data sources in your system. So just imagine what this system can do over an entire enterprise at scale continuously. And now Andy is going to tell you a little bit about what Tamr can do at the executive level, for example, for CIO.
So real briefly, one of the things that you're always trying to do as the CIO is connect the producers of data with the consumers of data and understand what are the attributes that are the most interesting and compelling. One of the capabilities that Tamr provides is the opportunity to register your applications and all the attributes that are being used in those applications and connect it to all the actual data sources themselves. So you as the CIO can make decisions about which attributes are really worth curating, where you're going to spend your time, energy, and effort in curating data sources. Or in this distributed scenario, as Alan described, we've got lots of people doing curation. You know, which are the attributes that are really worth asking your organization to engage with and maintain? So, you know, we're really excited to be launching today. I'm incredibly humbled by all the people that are involved in Data Tamr, and especially my co-founders, specifically Mike Stonebreaker and Ihab Ilyas. Really fantastic opportunity. It's an honor for me to work with those guys, we really appreciate. Outside, we've got a demo station set up. You can see the product as it works today. You can also see some of the aspirational capabilities. Really encourage you to go out and engage. And that's a quick overview of Tamr. So thank you for being here for our launch. Appreciate it.
Hello, Randy. We've got a few minutes left for a free Q&A, and if anyone has a specific question, for Andy, feel free to raise your hand. I'm not sure if we really prepped the mics, but it looks like we do have some mics back there, so raise your hand. I just want to ask a few questions first, real quick, because I'm dying to jump in. I haven't had a chance actually to go through these questions with Andy, but it looks like this is really cool stuff, Andy, but it looks like you're going after the enterprise right away. You're
right.
focused the CIO. This is a huge problem where you've been dealing with tens of thousands of sources. Can you talk about the challenge of doing that thing now in this marketplace where you've got so much noise? You do have a number of competitors that are trying to do the same thing. Are you having to rip out existing technology, or are you going to how are you going to actually get into the enterprise?
Yeah, it's really hard. As being a buyer, I was never looking to add another vendor to my list of technologies. And so, you know, we're really sensitive to the fact that there's a lot of capability that exists out there. We do think that this is something new. My partner, Mike, and I, we don't need to start another company. We're building this because we think it's an important new piece of infrastructure, and also, to a certain extent, brings to bear the same kind of capability that modern internet companies are using today to curate their information. The Google Knowledge Graph project is an incredible example of this. And there's many, many other examples in the modern internet where people are doing this machine learning and machine-driven and human-guided kinds of data curation. So we're just bringing that to the mainstream of the enterprise.
Can you talk a little bit about the vision of say, security and compliance?
Yeah.
Again, you're dealing with tens of thousands of sources. You talked about getting stuff from the web as well, right? From information from all over the place, out external as well as internal. Talk about those privacy implications.
Yeah, I think that this sort of gets back to information culture inside of any company. Any company is going to have a profile, and they're either going to have a culture of information sharing where they want lots of people to engage in that information, much like we had at Novartis, where there's huge benefit from getting scientists to see each other's data and collaborate. And you're going to have other organizations, like Steve's example, where you're closely regulated and you have to control this information very carefully. The Tamr system really just provides a tool for you to implement whatever curation makes sense given the information culture in your company.
If you're using machine learning and you're actually validating some of these sources and making connections and to learn what people in the organization need to see and when, how do you deal with unstructured data? It just doesn't have any definition.
Well, yeah, this is
manage that as well?
Yeah, this is a real, and I've been through the process of building data lakes and doing all this, great Hadoop stuff. I mean, it's really powerful. I wasn't at my quota, so I added another one. Hadoop. Yeah. But The real key to this unstructured data is eventually you're going to want to bridge all this unstructured data and all the tags associated with that data with your traditional corporate structured data. And when you sort of try and create that bridge between these huge masses of unstructured stuff that you have and the actual traditional transactional data, you need to use something like Tamr to do that because it's the only way to really do this at scale and to engage the data experts that actually know something about your structured data sources.
Can you talk a little bit about your differentiation from some of the key competitors? Who do you see as your main competitors out there?
Yeah, well, some of the new folks that are out there, Joey Hellerstein has a great company called Trifacta, which we think is very complementary. Sort of, if you've got a small number of sources and you really want this great user experience for your data scientists, Trifacta is a great solution, and Mike and I have worked closely with Joey for many years. The Clear Story solution is very interesting, but really tightly bundles a visualization system. And Sharmila, when we talk about this, we're really about the data prep side. We're about getting all their data sources prepared so that when a data scientist goes to operate on those sources, that they don't have to waste this time monging all the data and kind of getting it prepared to do the analysis. They can just focus on the analysis. And then there's another one called Paxata, which is a bunch of great enterprise folks out of SAP.
What do you see as the main challenge of the go-to-market strategy? I saw that you listed a bunch of logos on go-to-market strategy. I saw Cloudera there.
Yeah.
Doop-a-doop-a-doop.
Yeah.
What is the natural partnerships for you guys as you go forward? I saw the Trifacta, for example.
Yeah.
I think we just wrote about it a couple weeks ago that they signed a deal with Cloudera, so you can hook up with their Hadoop's kit.
I've been on the other side of this. As a buyer of these technology products, oftentimes I prefer to buy these kinds of solutions from the largest vendors that I already purchased stuff from. And so a key part of Tamr will be a strong indirect strategy. And some of the logos you saw up there, are examples of that, Click and such. And so we imagine a lot of our customers will just buy our technology either through those partners or as an embedded part of an OEM solution. Because this capability, we really believe it's very horizontal, it's very broad, lots of people are going to want this.
Great. And combination of machine learning, crowdsourcing, tens of thousands of sources, it almost feels like you're doing too much. Can you talk a little bit about focus? I mean, there's a sense of the aggregators. I mean, I talked to investors out there. There's a sense that aggregators are the investment they're looking for, and then there's another set of investors who are saying there's no value in those aggregators, right? Because they're just trying to do too much. Can you talk about?
Well, let's go back to the 1990s and say what's the value of connecting all these new websites that don't really do much and don't have a lot of information. Reality is it's worth a lot.
Yeah.
We think that
some of the browsers actually had a little bit of a problem, right? It's a long-term business model.
We're at the beginning of a 5, 10, 15-year process of figuring out how to connect all this data inside the enterprise. And it's going to take as long as it took for the search engines to connect all the information on the web and for the web to evolve to the scale that it's at today. We're going to have a similar kind of challenge in micro inside of every single company. But the assets that we need to connect in the enterprise are not just unstructured content. The real digital assets that drive the enterprise are data that are used for analytics and decision making. And that's really the assets that we're focused on connecting.
Yeah, great. Step up here. Okay, we're actually over time, but I promised a couple of questions. I did see a hand go out here. Is your question still valid? Go ahead.
I hope so. So
Thanks.
A big part of the quality improvement seemed to be relying on the human experts who could provide insights about the data and connection support. I wasn't clear that I understood how you actually identify within an organization who are the right experts. Could you describe that?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating, almost always that process starts with identifying source owners. So as people register their data sources and we register who those source owners are, those are always the first part of the process of identifying the experts. And then over time, as the system runs continuously and we start asking questions of people, we've been really shocked at the number of people in companies that are interested in helping improve. If you ask them really simple, actionable questions, the number of people that are really interested in engaging in the process of improving data quality. We even have a customer that connected it to their corporate reward system so that people in their company were encouraged to actually improve the quality of data over time. And I really think that this kind of a distributed approach that is the key to improving data quality. Back at Infinity, when we used to have a lot of this data quality, we did on scientific data, and we actually called the job Dung Beetle Patrol. Because it was like pushing dung around all day, right? It's not a lot of fun. And our system, right, but it needs to be done. It's work that has to happen in order for us to empower these analytics. And the result, the only way to do this is by really engaging with all these data experts and making it a lot easier and more fun for them. And eventually gamifying this for them, where they feel like they can compete for who can do the best on data quality.
One last question for Andy. Anyone? Jordan, you got your questions answered? So VentureBeat has a story. Okay, did you actually announce how much you raised?
Yeah, we've raised over 16 million.
16?
Specifically 16 and a half, yeah.
Is that announced today?
Yeah, that's today. Right here.
So Google, NEA?
Google and NEA are the leads, and we're really excited about those investors. We're also psyched to have an amazingly talented engineering team. I mean, these engineers that are building this stuff are truly the best in the world, and real honor to work.
Where'd you get it?
We're on the Red Line in Boston, which is the primary source of great engineering talent. We're blessed out there in Boston with great talent coming out of MIT and all the other schools every day.
All right, Andy, thanks for joining us. Congratulations.
Thanks.